Welcome to another episode of the Modern Life Podcast. I'm your humble host, Sam, yet again. Today I'm going to be joined by my lovely sister, Tabby, and my lovely girlfriend, Stacy. We're going to talk about what our favorite action scenes in movies are. So, without further ado, let's jump right into it. How are you guys?
I don't know if y'all remember our one listener last time. I was talking trash about action movies as we were wrapping up the podcast, so I thought it'd be fun to just kind of make a list of what all our favorite action scenes are. This does not mean that the movie itself is like an amazing movie.
Right. No.
And we don't have a set number as well, so we're just gonna go through it.
Yeah, I mean, it probably would have been good to have a set number since we ended up coming up with like 30 different scenes, but
What's first on your list? What you got there?
well, I just kind of wrote them down. So, to give you guys a little background, each of us made a list and then we all sat down together and we just watched every single scene just to kind of refresh our mind. So that's what we just did, and then we went straight to recording this podcast. And so first scene we watched was from the first Pacific Rim. It's the fight scene in, I think it's Hong Kong. I forget.
Yeah.
It's either Tokyo or Hong Kong. I always
Tokyo.
forget which
Yeah,
one.
Tokyo.
But it was on my list. I don't know if it made it on anyone else's list. I just love that scene. It's just kind of like right in the middle of the movie, and it's like this great climax action scene, and just all the colors and
Yeah,
kind
I
of,
wrote that down too. I love the colors.
the colors are just like absolutely fantastic, and it makes that scene stand out to me. And also just the whole concept of like this giant robot fighting this Godzilla thing, especially like the first time I watched it, it was just the little child in me was like, oh my god, look at all the pretty colors, look at the giant monsters.
See, I didn't really I like the movie Pacific Rim, but that particular scene just really doesn't do it for me at all.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No.
Why not?
It's way too much CGI for me. Like,
Oh,
I'm just
really?
not a CGI person. I don't
okay, so
give
you
them
wouldn't
I don't
choose
give them
that.
precedence as much as I do
Okay.
like real action. I do like the fact that they flash to the actual people because those
Right.
scenes are the part of the scenes where I actually like.
Interesting.
But the
I have a note about that because they make it interesting. It's not like the Tony Stark
Right.
face
Exactly.
in darkness. You have like the sparks flying
Right,
and the thing
right.
moving and the camera angles are spinning around them.
And I think
Well, that's a lot of the reason why, like, on my list, like, there was no, like, superhero
Right.
movies. It's just because
Right.
when there's so much of, like, that, there's no real draw
Oh, no,
for me.
no,
But
yeah.
at least that movie does do the scene flashing back to the actual people,
No,
so it gave it
I'm
some
on the
reality.
same page. I mean, most of the first of all, I have a huge heart on for like single take or long take action scenes, which we'll find out on this podcast. But yeah, like I don't go towards the whole CGI stuff. Like, but I don't know, just something about the way they filmed it in Pacific Rim. It's just kind of I don't really mind it.
A few more notes I had on this is I really like the camera angles from as if you're in a helicopter and then they shot it as
Yeah,
if it was
yeah.
a news thing.
Right.
It made you think of
Yeah.
you're watching this from on the.
Also, one thing you notice, which I think makes the CGI work for me, is there's like a real weight to the movements of these monsters and robots,
Okay.
together with the sound effect, and kind of, if you really notice, the way kind of the camera moves as the like giant robot is walking, together with just as these heavy sound effects they have, there's just like a real weight to the CGI, which then I don't think of it as CGI so much. I just think of it as like this action scene. I
And
don't
the
know.
whole movie, the whole thing, every time they were filming that, that's all I could think of was
Okay.
just the CGI.
I
So-
do like the sword. I like the sword design. It's like
The
a chain, but then it like.
The sword's great, but it's like, why do they only now, as they're flying through space, figure out, hey, we have a sword we can use? Anyways.
And then the other last note I had on it, I love the angle of the ship dragging from below. Where he's dragging
Yeah,
the
when-
ship
when
behind it and you
the
see
robot
Yeah, that was
drags the
very
giant
well. I
ship.
like that.
Yeah.
I think that might be my favorite part of the whole scene. Just, that's Gypsy Danger's the name of the robot, ends up using it's like the freighter ship as like a baseball bat against the alien. I don't know. The whole fight choreography really just works for me, and I love it. Anyways, let's not get hung up on that. What's next? Next we watched the Crazy 88 scene from Kill Bill, and on my list specifically was what's her name in the movie?
Go-Go. She's my favorite character.
No, the what's the main character's name? I always forget.
Black Mamba, is that it?
No.
Kiddo?
Oh my god.
Who are you
no,
talking
Uma
about?
Thurman.
Yeah, her name is Kiddo.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh. It's her against Go-Go. That's not her actual name.
That's what they call her.
Okay. No, yeah, that's just her nickname.
Whatever.
Anyways, my favorite...
She's Black Mamba because the scene
No, that's her assassination name.
Right,
Yeah.
but her real name
actually.
is Kiddo something.
Okay, anyways. Specifically for me was her against Go-Go, but I know you kind of had the entire Crazy 88 sequence. Well, I'll tell you why
done it.
I tell you why I like the Go-Go scene kind of the best out of that whole sequence, because it just kind of, to me, it feels like that's the one scene in the movie where she's really kind of
vulnerable.
It's like the most vulnerable, and it's like kind of the toughest opponent she has in the whole movie. Like she almost gets choked out. And I really like, it feels the most, there's just kind of like a lot of like kind of anime influences the way some of the action is. Like, you know, she just, like when she jumps from table to table, she doesn't just jump, it's like she almost kind of like flies from table to, it's like this hyper realism, right? Throughout the whole movie, but I think it's the most during that scene, and it just kind of, it's like this hyper real thing, and just together, you know, when she kills Go-Go, and it's just like the piece of wood with the nails in the head, and it's just like the blood
I love that
coming
scene.
out.
It's so visually
think
beautiful.
it's a beautiful scene. It's like just great choreography, and it's also like she's met her match in that movie. Like I really like that scene. But I mean, I don't know, you tell me. You like the whole scene?
It's ridiculous. And we also watched the color version on YouTube, which in the movie it is black and white.
Which I think was only released in Japan, right?
I think so.
I think so, yeah.
Because it's a bit much, but that's what I like about it. I like both. I like the black and white, and I like the color, and I like certain camera choices, like when the axe is flying, and then you follow the axe, and the guy, it just goes in the guy's head, and he falls back, and it's... Why I chose the scene is it's just ridiculous, and it's just a good time.
Oh, yeah. But we did watch the color version, the alternative version, and it's not the color and all the blood that bothers me. It's actually it's edited completely differently, and the music's completely different, and it just doesn't work for me as a whole.
It's so much more artistic. I feel like in the black and white, like it brings it allows the colors to really like. It almost makes you focus more on what's going on.
It does,
because
and
the blood's not. It was
completely unintentional.
Yeah.
Because as we looked up, I mean, it's a pretty famous story, but if you don't know, I mean, Tarantino wanted to do it all in color, and then the censors were like, even for an R-rated movie, this is just way too much blood, way too much crazy violence. So they were like, if you put it in black and white, we'll let it pass. And then he ended up actually liking it as black and white, and then just left the whole scene in like that. So
yeah, I also like all the crazy sound effects, which are meant to be comical. And I think as we were going through this list, there were a lot of scenes where I'm like, ooh, the sound effects didn't age well, you know. And I think this is not supposed to age well, you know what I mean? It's just supposed to be ridiculous and...
it's supposed to be very anime. It just kind of over the top, and like kind of it really points out.
And there's that scene kind of a quarter way through the movie where there's a whole scene in that anime style. So it just seems to be kind of like just that whole Japanese influence in the whole movie. Yeah.
And also something this scene does well is use space. It uses the water, then she goes up on the railing, she goes back down, and it's like a scene where they go around. So it's,
they have like this giant set, and they use like every inch of it.
Yeah.
But to go back, the reason why I like the Go-Go part so much is because she's met her match, and I want to bring this up just because of something you said, Stacey, before we started doing the podcast, which is like what makes a great action scene for you guys? Because to you brought up the point. Well,
it's all about the build and like the opposing they have to meet. There has to be some kind of tension and challenge.
Because you said if it's too easy for the main character, it's not
ruins
a great
it for me.
scene,
Yeah,
right?
It ruins it for me. It doesn't like.
It needs to be a challenge.
Yeah,
right.
Because if I don't feel the challenge, then I don't feel the build. And the whole point of an action film for me is the build and like the want to like see the tension.
And I think a lot of the scenes we chose, like the main character gets like injured in some way.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just kind of that is the scenes we're drawn to, where it's just a challenge for the main character. Like they get hurt, they're not just like this invincible. Like they are vulnerable. So I don't know.
All right, what's next?
All right, next we watched It's the Edge of Tomorrow.
I have so much to say
with
about
Tom Cruise, and it's the first scene on the beach.
I chose this one.
Yeah, this was all you, Tubby. What do you like so much about this?
It works so well emotionally. There's so much going on. I remember when I first watched this, I think we were in the theater.
Yeah, we watched it in the theater together.
And I was Tom Cruise in that scene. My anxiety was through the roof.
And you're not really a big Tom Cruise
He's
fan.
He's not going to know to fight. The safety's still on. And we're like, oh my god. Then then before they even land, the ship sets on fire. When the camera work is so great. Mm-hmm. When they drop down, then he gets yanked back up. It's the cords get tangled. One guy's on fire. the scream as it gets yanked back up, it becomes quiet. I love that. The sound is really, really great there. And also before the scene even starts, Tom Cruise running away. He's running away from they're all walking towards the thing, and they're having to call him back because he's afraid he doesn't want to fight. And I was like, I thought that was refreshing because superhero or action heroes are usually the tough guy who nothing affects them. So I that was refreshing to see. I love the environmental effects, the mud waves and the sand. The sand's flying.
Yeah.
And that scene, oh my god, I'm so gay for that scene where Emily's exiting the crashed plane with
it's
the
just
sword,
her black silhouette. She's dragging the sword
behind her, and her gun rocket things look like wings, right? Because she's the angel of Verdun.
Right.
And then also the alien movements that are little, like an octopus on the ocean floor.
They're super fast.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed that.
No, it's one of my favorite action movies. Absolutely.
And the scene where he falls over from shooting. I'm like, that there's
some
kickback from the thing. I really appreciated that too. And the face melting shot is
that's what
excellent.
I wrote down.
Yeah, that's my favorite shot. Is the
camera just zooms in on him and just that that
and you're watching it and you're like, wait, what? I don't think I knew what the premise was. I was like,
well, it was sort of a Groundhog premise, but you go into that movie and I just didn't know what to expect. So especially I think the first time when you watch that scene, you're just you don't know what's coming. Yeah. What else? Next we watched the first John Wick, The House Invasion. It's about a quarter way through the movie.
Yeah,
it's the first really big action scene after the whole story, the minimal story there is, has been set up.
If anybody makes a list like this and John Wick isn't on it, they're full of crap.
I mean, I think John Wick, it just kind of refreshed the whole action genre, and it's going back to old school of how and this is how I think most action scenes should be shot, where it's just, it's not all this quick cut. We went through this phase, I think, in the last 10 years, and you see this a lot in, the Marvel movies. It's just all these really quick cuts, and it's blurry, and you don't know what's going on. And then when John Wick came out, when did John Wick, almost 5 years ago now?
Yeah.
Right? The first John Wick came out, a while ago now. It was so refreshing to go back to that. It's just kind of a more wide angle, and longer takes, and you can really see the fighting and what's going on, and there's a real impact to when you see a punch or kick happen from beginning to end in one take instead of
more you can see the whole flow of it versus
fluid, exactly.
I went through a period. I was a huge action freak when I was younger, and I would watch every single action movie known to man. And then all of a sudden, we got into this area where I stopped watching action movies. I didn't enjoy them. And then I started dating this guy over here. And
one of the first movies we saw together was Mad Max.
Yeah.
You were like, it's just an action movie. I'm like, no, you don't understand.
It's about feminism.
You have to see. The action is amazing.
Yeah. And it drew me back into that genre again, and it was refreshing to see that the stuff that I loved about action movies had actually started to come back into these movies.
And the just a quick background: the two directors had worked with Keanu Reeves. They were action stunt guys themselves, and they were
Matrix movies.
Not seeing the stuff that they like, and they're we know what we're doing. We can make our own movie. And I think when this movie first came out, I was like, this is the dumbest thing I have ever heard of.
Let's talk about the plot.
But the plot works for what the movie is.
Yeah, no, it's totally brilliant. It was like what's the plot? But then the movie is perfect. You want to love it.
And you see that Matrix influence and just that old school influence, because we do have a scene from the Matrix later, and when you compare really any action scene from the Matrix to a scene from Guardians of the Galaxy, just compare like how that is shot, and I don't know how anyone can argue for these quick cuts, blurry. Like I don't even know what's going on. I mean, I think the worst offender was that last Born Identity movie.
I walked
it is
out.
you walked out of the theater.
I was seasick.
I think that's the peak of like this shaky cam quick cut, and I think it's gotten better since then. It was just like, and the thing is, behind the scenes, there's like stunt guys putting all their heart into it, and there's probably some really cool choreography, but you can't even tell just the way it's shot. So.
Yeah. So specifically about the John Wick house scene, there is some great level design there. There's a great flow. He starts up top, he jumps down from the stairs, we go through the kitchen. Then it ends at the front door, which ties in perfectly with the establishing of the myth of John Wick, because Jimmy knocks on the door and he's like, well, noise complaint. Like, even the cops are not going to mess with this guy.
Right.
So that's really, even though it's really simple, it's a really simple line. It follows it perfectly, and also the very tactical shooting. There's no unlimited ammo syndrome here, and he does a like 2-shot, then he assesses. He like regroups, 2 shots, like you go into cover.
You count
2
the
shots.
bullets. Which I think when you hear the directors, I think there's some interview, right? They're like, we actually count the bullets, make it more realistic.
Then also the scene of him stabbing the guy and just punching the knife.
I remember like the first time seeing that movie, just like cringing, going like, I haven't seen anything like this. It's just like
very satisfying.
It's like brutal, and it's like all one take of him stabbing the guy, and it's just like a real impact to the action, and it's beautiful.
My favorite shot of that is the wall to wall, and they're back to back, and then he kneels down and he shoots behind him, and he doesn't even look because he's so cool. He just shoots the guy.
I love when he's a little spider monkey right before that, and he jumps on the guy as the guy's spinning, shoots the other guy. And then with this momentum from spinning, like takes down. He's just like this little spider monkey jumping around. It's so great. Next was...
Wait, Stacey, did you have anything else to say?
I just love the colors in it. I like the very... Yeah. I like really am drawn to movies where they use the colors to influence like the kind of the tension in the role. Totally. So you have like all the muted colors, and then you have like the blood splatter of red. It's like super red.
And then
I love that.
I think you see that most in the other scene in the movie, in the nightclub. And they make great use of... Because everyone's kind of wearing black suits in the movie, you can like make all the other colors.
There's like a couple other movies that do a really great job with that, like the muting, and we'll go into them later. But like,
let me actually just to finish us off. If you watch the entire movie of John Wick, really pay attention to the level design. Like the nightclub scene, there is a line. You're following certain things. He goes up, he falls down on the floor, and then when you have a stationary set like the hotel scene, you have really interesting hand-to-hand combat between the assassin and John Wick. So the movie really knows how to use space and make things interesting even when there's no movement of scenes. And just compare that to when you're watching other action scenes and the set is just completely... They don't do anything with it.
Right.
You know? Right. So these guys know what they're doing.
You seem to like... I mean, you like that with the Kill Bill too. You like the use of space, it seems like.
Yeah, space is a big thing for her.
Next on our list, I don't remember which Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
The two ladies.
The two ladies fighting.
This is on Stacey's list.
Yeah.
Did we end up watching that?
Yeah, we watched the whole scene.
We watched so many action scenes. I forgot about this one.
This one is really great because it's the younger one with one weapon, and then the older one going through all
different. It's like the switch of the weapons throughout the whole thing.
Makes it interesting.
And then there's also just like the music is like so simple and like it's really beautiful.
I believe. That soundtrack is just insane.
Yeah, the music in that movie is what really like drew me out. It's like so perfect to the fighting scene. It like it doesn't like overkill, and like it just is like simple and just.
Again, it's like I did write down, it's these wide open shots, now that I remember it, and you really get to see that choreography, and I love it's this era, where we had Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Hero, there was like another movie, and they all just the sound effects of the swords like slicing through the air.
Such beautiful choreography.
They all kind of use that.
But it doesn't seem like, there's some movies that do choreography and you can see like where it looks rehearsed. It doesn't look like they would actually are like making contact or anything like that. And that movie, I feel like actually like you can see the contact, you can see them throwing back, but it's still such a beautiful flow.
Right.
It's like,
and also, you can watch that scene all by itself. If you haven't seen Crouching Tiger and Dragon, still appreciate it. But at that point in the movie, you're just so fed up with the younger girl that you're so on the like older master's like side. Like she's like, just show her who's boss.
Right.
Like you're.
All right, next up was the movie Heat, the shootout after the bank robbery. It's the famous shootout in downtown LA. They actually shut down a portion of downtown LA to shoot this. Oh yeah, no, it was like a big ordeal. This was on Stacy's list, I believe. So what do you like about it, Stacy?
Music plays a big thing for me, so I really liked how simple the music was.
Oh yeah,
is there music?
Yeah, it's like really like very light in the background, but they like play it with the shooting sounds, and it kind of helps to build, but it doesn't overpower. I also really like the angles in the shots. They're not. It's not quick action, but it's like they take it and then they move it, and it's like. So you kind of feel, because there's so much going on.
There is. You're following like 5 different characters.
Yeah, and so it's kind of like they did such a nice job of like shooting but not making me dizzy, which I feel like a lot of action movies do, is like they shoot so fast when there's too much going on that they like, you're literally like, you have to like take a breath, you know? I really like how the screaming in the background kind of flows into the music.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it kind of like fades, and I don't know, it's really sometimes the editing's a little weak to me. There's like a couple scenes that I feel like are too long, and they needed to shorten them down.
I also my one always weird thing with that scene is I never quite know where Al Pacino is. Like he's running somewhere in the background, but he never quite. It doesn't seem like he should be that far from like Val Kilmer and the other bad guys, but he's always kind of just running towards them for like 5 minutes. I'm like, how far away are you?
Yeah, I was like, maybe if I had seen the movie, I understood, I could appreciate this, but I had a lot of criticisms with that scene.
I know, you didn't like it, and you've never seen the whole movie, right?
No, I
saw. Which is a shame.
I feel like there was unlimited ammo syndrome.
Yeah, totally.
A tiny bit, but there are a couple scenes of them reloading too, so it's not like completely, but I get what you're saying.
And then this is a bizarre criticism that just throw it out the window because it's so strange.
Sure.
But there were 2 glass shattering sounds that they used over and over.
Oh, really?
And all the glass was shattering, and it was the same. It was the same volume as the gunshots, and I'm like, does a car window being shattered make that same noise? For some reason, that sound just took me out of it.
Interesting.
And then, so it's not a shootout, and then we also went over to the supermarket.
The grocery store.
Right?
Everyone's like still shopping for groceries.
Yeah.
And that, I'm sorry, this should be like in the Hall of Fame of like worst background actors, because I could not even focus. They were just like flailing and holding their heads as if they were like in a Grand Theft Auto video game, and these were their like pre-programmed like.
I guess.
Nobody went down on the ground, and if you look at any like survivor stories from all these very recent shootings, everyone just goes on the ground and pretends to be dead.
We're kind of like been trained to do that after all these shootings.
I'm sorry, but what those background actors were doing is not natural.
I don't know if you know.
Crouching down with your card and going to your car.
I think until you're in a situation like that, I don't know what is natural.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
will care only about my groceries.
I don't know,
my celery needs to make it.
Get the potato salad.
Station wagon.
What I love, and we have actually 3 scenes. Michael Mann's the director, and I love certain things Michael Mann does, like just the noise, the sheer noise of the gunshots. It just, and I don't know really of any other director who quite does, and I don't know what the hell he does in post-editing, but there's just such like an impact to every single gunshot. There's another scene from Heat we have later, and
we can talk about it now.
Sure. Yeah. So, because I had the ending of Heat on my list, and you were like, what the hell kind of gun does he have? Because it's just so... There's just such an impact to when the guns are shot, like no matter if it's a rifle or handgun, and I really just appreciate that. Just like...
Can I tell you why?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just tying my notes in with your notes here, and it's perfect, because there are no sounds of the grass. They're walking in the grass. There are no sound. You hear like the plane, I believe, and then the gunshot.
Right.
So it's very, very selective with what sound effects the audience gets to hear, and I think that also makes those gunshot sounds so effective because they're
puts
very
them at the
aware.
forefront.
Exactly.
Well, you hear them walking, you hear them running through the grass.
You don't.
No.
You don't.
At the very beginning, you do.
No, not from the scene we watched on YouTube. I wrote that down right away.
Right when Robert De Niro is like hiding at the very end, you hear him like walking a little bit.
I think the point is whether you can hear him in the beginning. Yeah. He uses sound to build tension.
Yes,
I mean that last scene with the airplane, like the airplane is so effective in the lighting, in in the sound and everything. It like builds the tension. There is not much action happening in that last scene.
No, there's not. I want to talk about that. Yeah,
but you're right. The tension is there, which is what makes an action scene. An action scene is there's a hero. There's action, and there's an end.
I wrote down, this is a cerebral action scene.
Oh, it totally is. Just the way with the lighting and everything. And it made me think, like, I can totally see the argument of how the ending of Heat is not an action scene, but I chose to include it anyway because, I don't know, there's really only 3 seconds of action, of them shooting. But I think it's such a great payoff from all the tension before, and so can a simple, really short action scene be great just because it's a payoff from what happened before? Like, I don't know, I think it can. And then also what happens afterwards is just such like a beautiful...
Oh, the music's so great.
And it's Moby. Moby remixed some song, that's what they used in the ending. And especially when you see the whole movie, the whole ending scene is such an amazing... The ending is such an amazing payoff, not just to the scene before it, but to the whole movie in general. And I don't know. So I chose to include it because it is the grand climax of the entire... I mean, it's a pretty long movie. I think it's almost 3 hours, maybe 2.5 hours. And so that little bit of shooting right at the end is just a payoff for everything. So I chose to include it as an action scene. But it's kind of like a suspensey, thrillery scene. Like, I can see that argument as well. But, yeah, I mean, it's one of the few movies I cry every single time at that ending. Because there's this whole build-up.
I was crying, I didn't see the movie.
Yeah. There's this famous scene, and I know you've never seen the movie, Tabby. There's this famous scene in the diner with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. And they're both at the height of their acting career. They'd never been in a movie together. So it was like this big deal that they're in a scene together.
It was huge.
Yeah. And so, part of it is, Robert De Niro says to Al Pacino, like, I don't care what happens, like, I'm never going back to jail. Like, I'm never going back. That's his whole thing. And so Al Pacino's like, well, I might have to put you down. And Robert De Niro's like, well, there's a flip side to that coin. I might have to put you down. So there's mutual respect between the characters, but they each know what their part is in their own world. One's a cop, one's a bank robber. And then just, like, them holding hands at the end, just as his, like, respect thing, like, and then him going, like, I'm never going back. I don't know, it's just, like, it's a beautiful, with the music and the shots and everything. But, yeah, I love that freaking movie. Next on our list was the movie Nice Guys. Came out a couple years ago.
Dude, I had to have some kind of action comedy in my list because I love action comedy.
So this is the last shootout, right?
The very last shootout at the car show.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pretty big sequence, but I think we're taking it from just when the actual shooting happens, right?
No, we have to talk about him jumping in the pool.
Well, that's like that's in the middle of it, right? Yeah.
No, that's what starts it off.
Is it? I don't think so.
No, the starting scene is when he's like behind the car, isn't it?
Oh no, you're right.
He jumps down.
Falls off.
Did you fall?
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, it's so great.
I think I'm invincible.
And just the first time watching it, he's on the platform with the car on display and it's spinning, but he doesn't. He's so freaking stupid. He doesn't realize the platform is spinning, so he takes cover behind it. He reloads. He's like, okay, and then he pops up on the car, but like the villain's behind him.
It is a crime that this was not nominated for original screenplay.
It's a fantastic. It's such a great movie. But I don't know. I mean, what else do we have to say about it?
I have so much to say.
I mean, to me, it's just. I think it's one of like the great comedic acting performances.
Yeah,
by
it's
Ryan
amazing.
Gosling, and it just does not get any credit at all.
No.
I think it's one of those movies where 10 years from now, it's just going to like age, and people are going to discover it more and more.
Him jumping on the table and the table flips over, and then him falling on the car and somebody opens the car door.
It's like all he does is take over.
No, it's just like laugh after laugh. Yeah, when he... Oh, God.
Oh, his facial
expressions.
expressions.
There's so many, like, running jokes, and there's just continuous payoff, like when he jumps in the pool, falls into the pool, and there's the Nixon waving at it. Like, it's just like...
And also, there's actually some really great hand-to-hand combat between the enemy and some of the guys at the car show.
Right.
So
no, and at the same time, there's like a couple really violent scenes by the villain. So.
Oh, and also the child fighting against
the girl, and that was really
in the projector room,
and
they're using the projector reel as like
that's right. He's like blocking bullets with the projector reel. it's fantastic.
Because this movie is one of the very few movies where there's a child playing an intelligent. It's not a kid's part. It's
she's the adult in the relationship between her father. Yeah.
Game of Thrones does that really well. I hate to give that show any credit, but they have really good kids parts as well.
But it's a beautiful way. It's a beautiful example of you have this one object, this film reel, right?
Oh, you're right.
That's just rolling, and it keeps the whole action moving forward.
I didn't realize that.
Because the reel just keeps. And they're just chasing.
That's what he's chasing the entire time. Yeah,
it's like just a clever. I mean, by no way original way, but just clever to keep the whole thing just moving naturally. This was on Stacy's list. The next movie, in Ultraviolet.
It's the worst movie. Go ahead, it's fine. I expect it to be.
This didn't do anything for me, but please tell me. I think you like the colors a lot.
I'm just all about the colors. I'm sorry, the colors and the emotional buildup of the music supports, and I like the change of the weapons, and I really like the editing and how it was edited throughout the.
See, there's like so many quick cuts. It didn't do it for me.
I do like the colors. I also like the effects of the gun, which are purple, right? That's the whole part of the movie. I haven't seen the movie, but that was a cool.
I like when the blood. Really like when the blood changes her look like her clothes. Like I don't know. It's really visual, and I like that.
To me, my biggest thing is, this is why some action scenes I like more than others. It feels choreographed.
Oh my god, no! But I have so much to say about this. So. The enemies that are funneling into the library, it's not her reacting to who's coming through. It's like she's in her choreography and the enemies just have to come through because she has to have something to shoot. But I did like that part better than the fight before that, which is her in white. And then also the hidden weapons thing, which they bring up multiple times. She has so many weapons on her. I'm sorry, she's wearing like skin tight, like.
Yeah, where are these
weapons?
Sorry
to be a radical feminist right now, but that costume, like, she has so many.
There's a lot of butt shots. We got the Mila Jovovich ass shots from behind as the enemies are funneling in. Whereas the suit's changing, it didn't do anything.
And she hits the guy.
It was just one of the. I just wanted to give kind of like a point to the fact that was like one of the it was. Color really became important starting right in that genre. Right. So that's really had a lot to do with it because a lot of my favorite parts of action movies in the future are those color and how they use the visualization of color to
And I think that is a thing that newer action movies. They've kind of figured out really well is just this contrast of colors. And there's a couple other scenes that we'll get to, like there's a scene in Skyfall and whatever.
There's a scene where the 300 scene is really big on the color, actually.
Yeah, and I think that is a thing modern action movies do better for the most part than old action movies. Like when you look at, I think we have Lethal Weapon coming up, or The Matrix. It's just the color palette just isn't as vibrant or contrasting.
Yeah, exactly.
So...
Which is why this made my list. It's really just the colors.
And it's not something you need in a movie, but
no.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
And then there's one quick editing mistake where they're about to chop off a girl's head or whatever.
In Ultraviolet?
Yeah, and then you see the girl's in, and then they pull up the screen, and there's a scene of her killing people. But the scene they show is of her in the library, and that hasn't happened yet. So I was editing mistake. And then also I noticed the cuts, too, weren't even half a second long.
It was so fast. Yeah.
But that's all I had to say about that.
Next this was also on Stacy's list, the movie The Rock. Classic. Maybe Michael Bay's best movie. The scene in the shower. I think it's when they first storm Alcatraz, and their cover's blown. They were going to go through the showers, but the bad guys knew they were coming, right? And there's this whole standoff in the big shower room.
You put your weapons down! You put your weapons down!
So I don't know, what do you like so much about that scene?
The script, and I really like how they slow down on the faces as they die to kind of like build the tension, and so like kind of like really emphasizes what's going on.
It's just such a like Michael Bay testosterone.
Oh, it's so good. But I like how there's like so much tension in the beginning just from the yelling, like just from the script really build up the scene, which some movies don't. You really use that build up, and I like that tension.
Well, he puts a nice conflict in there because the bad guy used to be a good guy, and he's just trying to do what he thinks is right, but it's going against the U.S. government, right? And the main Marine from the good guys who's leading the group, he used to work under that guy, so there's this whole argument of...
Ed Harris is the bad guy.
Ed Harris is the bad guy.
Listeners, I just want you to know I've served Ed Harris and iced tea once, so I'm basically famous.
But, yeah, I mean, it's a fun scene.
And
it's
also,
not my favorite,
it actually takes into account tactical positioning in a
does,
way that
that's
movies
true.
often
That is
completely disregarded.
Right.
Because they're covered. They have the higher... This isn't Star Wars. I have the higher ground. Like, this is actually you having the higher ground, right?
Right. But there's... Right before the shooting starts, there's just this amazing quick cut of, like, it's... What, I think it starts with the good guy... No, it starts with Ed Harris going... I did not give that order. As it's zooming in on his face, it's going to the good guy going, I did not give that order. As it's zooming even closer to his face, and then back to Ed Harris going like basically up his nose going, I did not give that order. It's just like these two guys, and it's just zooming in more and more with every cut. But it just cracks me up that Michael Bay makes these just hyper masculine, like, because I think when you look at him, he's like this pretty skinny Hollywood director guy. So I don't know if it's just like I don't know if I think he's channeling his inner like I don't know what he's doing. It's just
I don't think.
But it's a classic movie. Classic movie. Next on Stacy's list also Lethal Weapon 4. It was the right when they're in the house against Jet Li, right?
Mm-hmm. So you have like
yeah. So let's talk about it. What do you like?
The script is amazing. I love just the banter between the two heroes, basically, in the movie. Mm-hmm. And then I also... It's one of the first action movies that allowed a female to not only be pregnant, but still be a badass. So it kind of, like, doesn't take...
Oh, I have to watch it.
What's the actor's name? We did watch it.
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh, no, it's quite brilliant, actually. Oh. She's actually in the one before.
You mean
first.
the whole movie you haven't seen?
I haven't seen any of these.
We didn't like the first one.
She's in it's Rene Russo.
Yes,
as she's in the first one, and she becomes his love interest and like the first girl that like actually can like challenge him in a fight. Mm-hmm. And then she becomes pregnant, and they still use her, and they never take away or like make her simple or small. Like she's a badass. She's pregnant, and she can kick anyone's ass, including her husband.
It caught me off guard because I haven't seen that scene in so long when the guy like takes her from behind and then she just starts kicking ass. And like, oh shit! Like I didn't even expect it.
Yeah, because women are always, especially pregnant women, are always viewed as such like weaklings or like you have to protect them, and it's like.
I was just like, oh, it's an older movie. She's just going to be like held high.
Yeah.
It just like.
Well, I mean, the perfect example is in the first 5 seconds of the movie. They show the bad guys, and what's the first thing he says to his wife is. Women leave. Right, he basically like kicks his wife and his daughter out of the house so that they can fight. Right. You know what I mean? And that to me, like, and then there's the pregnant badass.
Right, it has an iconic scene. I don't know if you guys caught it. It's when they have the gun, right?
Yeah, that's the best.
And then he dismantles the gun with one hand.
Yeah.
And they actually, I forget, it was Mythbusters or something. They proved it. It was actually, it's that actual type of gun that they used in the movie. It has this famous... It's famous for just being really easy to dismantle. So you could actually,
Really? So they did their research.
You could actually do it with one hand, which you can't really do with pretty much any other handguns. So.
Jet Li's legs in this movie are as if it's like a Kung Pao funny scene where the legs actually come off and like, but they're actually his legs.
No, and he really can make them move that fast.
Insane.
Well, that I think was what I included this scene because I mean I'm a huge Lethal Weapon fan and I've watched every single one, and the reason I think that this scene was so brilliant was because Lethal Weapon, like this fight scenes are they're
okay.
They're okay.
Right.
But this one, they tied in like that genre of like kung fu and how fast, and like Jet Li was just starting to come up right around this time. So it was like such an iconic person to have, like, such an iconic person to have in like one of these old school, like, just.
Well, it's like Mel Gibson macho gunfight versus this
Jet Li,
completely other style.
Yeah, so it was the mix between the two fighting styles that I really liked.
Yeah, totally.
So, and then on top of it, you add the female badass, and I'm always for the female badass. So.
All right. Next.
Wait, I have one more thing to say about Jet Li, because I feel like I've either watched a lot of Jet Li scenes for this thing to decide whether they're making my list. I think we were talking about Unleashed too, which made nobody's list, but he has this face, which he does in the scene, where it's just so regal. It's almost like he's a god descended from heaven. And the acting is so intense. Like, he has this like stoic face, and he's looking down. He does it in almost every movie, and you're just like, I'm here for that face. I'm at the table. Like, he does that so well. That's all I got.
Next was Terminator 2, The Escape from... What is she captured in? Like a
mental institute.
Mental, right?
Yeah, because, this is the scene after the last one where she has had her kid, and she's like, she's already taught him, he's a teenager now, she already taught him how to grow up and fight. And then, she's put into an asylum, and she needs to get out because she realizes that she needs to get to her son. She wants to
What's
get back
the actress's name? Does anyone know? Nobody really. I don't even know what else
I'm Sarah Connor. I said it first.
Sarah Connor.
Oh, she did push-ups.
Anyways, I think we need to start off by talking about maybe the most amazing ripped arms by a female action
That is the first action movie that allowed a woman to have ripped arms and look like a badass and yet still be feminine and pretty.
I think
she played such a... Well, I thought she was beautiful.
What? You don't think she's pretty?
Oh my god. Fine. I think she's so pretty.
Just really quickly, this is actually a huge issue with stunt women, because they're expected to be body doubles and perform all these things and then not have the muscles and covering necessary to do it. So it's a huge double standard.
No, I'm not saying she's not pretty because of her arms. She's just not my type in general.
Doesn't look like,
I think the only thing that comes close as far as like a female lead having ripped arms like that is
I know who you're going to talk about.
What's this movie? Double Jeopardy. Remember when she comes out of jail?
But this is what I'm saying. Like, up until those scenes, like, women were not. It was like a dainty. It's even like, look at even like Wonder Woman. Like, I love Wonder Woman. I'm not going to knock Wonder Woman, but like Wonder Woman is supposed to be an Amazon woman, and here you have this like little tiny. Now she might be a badass because I know she's like a Brazilian.
And she was pregnant.
Israeli. She was
an Israeli army person, so she's like super brilliant. But like, they have to have the female lead be attractive to most males, and so they don't allow them to look physically as strong because they want to attract the male audience.
When not that this is a Wonder Woman podcast, but especially when we see the only women who are that ripped buff type be the black Amazons in that movie, it's a little problematic.
Yeah, but I mean, you go back and you have to realize that this movie came out in like what, like 85 or 87.
Terminator 2?
Yeah, I think it was like
something like that.
Yeah,
right?
So to have this female lead look this strong was kind of iconic.
But anyways, to talk about the action scene more, I think it's the first time we see Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator spar off against. It's the T-1000 is what it's called. That iconic. Which
that guy does such great running in this scene.
Iconic,
excellent running.
And
when he's dodging the things, he's like moving.
It's Tom Cruise quality running. It's just and just like he's got this like military haircut, and it's just this like rigid, fast running. It's just amazing.
While
but
also
just
being like flowing and dodging things and like.
And so
I think that's so brilliant. In access to the fact that like you have the original Terminator who's like so stiff, but like doesn't have the fluidity. He gets shot and he just keeps going. Right. Versus this other guy who's like you said, he's made of mercury, so of course he's going to be like more flowing. He's going to have more movement.
But he does get slowed down a little bit by the gunshot.
So I don't know. It was really brilliant to use their body and like how they move to like kind of explain like what kind of metal they are and like how they can, I don't
and
know.
how, I mean, the special effect for that T-1000 like still holds up.
I don't think that's that difficult though, texture wise, to do like the little metal.
If you're like a movie from the late 80s,
you gotta remember that it's like from where it was.
I'm just saying, there's like look at the second or third Matrix movie. That to me, that CGI doesn't hold up anymore today. So just I don't know, to have something from that long ago where it still holds up, I think it's impressive.
Okay, yeah, I did. I like that you said when we were watching it, they'd go deaf in that elevator.
Oh my gosh, like shooting a shotgun inside of a tiny elevator.
And then when he's like, get down, and she doesn't get down and then gets stabbed in the arm, I'm like, he told you to get down. I don't know
but she doesn't trust him.
Down.
Because I forget the whole Terminator thing, right? She's seen the future or some shit, so she doesn't trust any of these Terminators. She's like scared of him at first.
Yeah.
All right, next up, Rambo: First Blood, the forest scene. Little squirrel boy.
Dude, I know this scene's ridiculous. I'm not even gonna pretend it's not, but you had to include like at least one Sylvester Stallone movie in this. And Rambo was like one of the first. I'm sorry, I have to owe to like some of the classics.
It's that time period that you grew up in.
Yeah, and I just really liked how the screaming adds to the confusion. Like you're very confused through the whole thing, like what's going on, and then it's just bait and brute. I mean, I don't know. I love this. I love the Rambos too. It's another series, so it's like one of the ones I chose.
To me, it's just a little bit too dark. Like I can almost not see what's going on. But
well, that's also with they don't do like bright lights until later. Like this was more about.
It's a fun scene though, with him just kind of being like the predator.
And he never really injures any. Like he injures everyone, but he doesn't really kill anyone. He injures, but doesn't kill. Is what I meant.
He gets stabbed in the stomach.
This guy gets stabbed in the stomach by like.
Yeah, but you don't remember his final
nails.
his final thing was like he was like I could have killed all of you and I let you all live. Like he's over.
What is it? Let it go.
That's not accurate. Sorry.
Sorry, a different movie.
First aid. First aid doesn't work like that.
All right, so next up, we got a couple Fast and Furious scenes. Stacy, you like where it's The Rock versus Statham, which is, I think it's Fast 8? It's either, it might be Fast 7, I forget. Anyways, I like the one from Fast 5 where it's The Rock versus Vin Diesel. The only constant being The Rock is in both scenes.
We do want to point out that Fast and Furious does have a lot of action scenes, but they're all car related, and we plan on eventually doing a car related car scene chase one. So those are not going to be in our.
Yeah, we didn't really pick any car scenes.
Yeah, so this was more like fight scenes versus car scenes.
Okay, so Rock versus Statham in prison.
Versus Rock versus...
I do think that's a better scene than Rock versus Vin Diesel.
One you chose.
But let's break down the prison scene first.
The visuals, the bright colors,
you like the
music.
Orange suits.
Oh my god, the difference between like...
That's what I wrote down. Great music.
Oh, the music is so phenomenal. It like adds to the thing. And then I love how it's like done. The choreography is almost like a dance scene. Like the whole movie, you feel like they're almost dancing.
Yeah.
But particularly, let me actually. Statham is dancing,
right?
And The Rock is like brutal force. It's
just
like,
and
it's
just like the Terminator 2 thing.
Yeah,
there's a nice contrast of fighting styles, and Jason Statham is so damn athletic. He's like parkouring through the prison and just bouncing around off the walls.
It's just amazing, and then. That plays to like why I dislike The Rock versus
interesting
because it's like two brute forces just like going at each other and
but that's what I like about it.
See, to me it's like there's no
boring.
It's kind of like boring.
You just took 2 slabs of steak and
they just like
bounced them against each other.
2 beefcakes sparking off.
I don't know. I like watching 2 different styles of dance. I
get that.
Yeah, just
but I like
to see because to me it makes more sense. For one person to come out like a victor versus the other.
Well,
like Rock is such a brutal force to
never mind that Vin Diesel's like 5'5" and
that's
The Rock
my
is like
point.
6'5", which
like
you never know
I would
from
love
watching
to watch
the movie.
Vin Diesel beat The Rock, but I really just don't believe it.
In
like
the
it's
movie,
really
they make
hard.
them look the same height,
and they're not.
But I do like. I just like.
And like they don't play that off on Rock versus Statham.
It's just like blow by blow, like these 2 forces. I just like that scene in Fast 5 with Vin Diesel against The Rock, and it's just they did a nice thing where it's both of those actors have huge egos, and it's like none of neither of them really won, but it is kind of Fast and Furious is kind of Vin Diesel's baby, so he sort of won by like. He would
have crushed his face if he
sparing
chose not to.
the
So
Rock's
he won.
life. It's just like, but it's kind of nice how they had to play it off a certain way because they don't want to really piss either actor off. Right?
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like
both actors want to look strong on screen.
I know. I just didn't really buy the end. Like, I would love to in real life to like have Vin Diesel beat The Rock, but it just really just doesn't work for me. I mean, I guess that's why Rock versus Statham does, is because at least it's a different fighting style coming up against that brute force. So there's like more like believability to the fact that he could win, even though he's like half his size, because he's quicker. Like, he's so much quicker.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, the prison scene, there was also one really great rifle spinning.
Oh, yeah, it was
which
brilliant.
I really enjoyed. And then I think it was The Rock, he was sliding down and then bouncing against the wall and then landed, which looked like a video game, and it really worked for me. I really liked that. And then once again, there's a linear action. There's great level design. They're getting out of the cells.
Totally.
They're going down the thing, and then all the enemies you fight along the way.
Yeah.
So I did like that.
Yeah, Fast and Furious, love it. I mean, there's a couple, like the baby scene in the plane, but it's not. It's just a funny scene.
Oh yeah, I did choose that one too.
It's not so much a great action scene. It's just kind of it's a good comedic action scene.
I guess it is interesting in the way you use a prop that you have to protect.
Exactly.
Or not to call a child a prop, but I mean...
No, but I mean, in this scene, it's kind of, like, done as a prop. Like, just like, like in, that other scene?
Those Nice Guys.
Nice Guys, where they use the thing.
Yeah.
It, like, kind of, like, draws the whole movie, draws the whole scene forward.
Yeah.
All right, next up on our list, there's a couple scenes from Skyfall, the James Bond movie we liked, which I think is one of the best James Bond movies in recent memory.
Oh, well, I like Casino Royale.
I like Casino Royale a lot, but the Daniel Craig movies have been, hit and miss. It seems like for Casino Royale was good, and then it was bad. Quantum of Solace, Skyfall was great again. I think Spectre, the last one, was complete garbage, which is funny because it's the same director as Skyfall.
Why, you don't like rape scenes with jazz music?
Anyways, I think Skyfall does some great stuff. And first on your list, Stacey, was it's pretty much the whole opening scene.
No, it wasn't the whole opening scene. It was it, or just
I think it's the opening scene.
It's just the train scene where they used the
part
prop
of the
to like
scene,
draw. I just really like how they used the props to like draw.
Yes,
on
like
the scene.
the
big.
He's got the big digger.
And he kind of like
bullets
uses
with
that
it.
to block the bullets, and then he's like, pulling it forward, and it's just like the noise was done very well in it, where it kind of like draw.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I like how he hooks the train with the digger and then runs over it, but the cart that the digger's on is slowing down, so it's going to rip the whole roof off.
You cannot use a handgun to uncouple a...
No, probably not.
Yeah, he shoots the coupling on the train cards like twice, and it just comes apart. It's just
oh my
ridiculous.
God, I love the scene where this is a really great shout out to kind of who James Bond is and who we like him to be. When he lands in that next card, he does his couplings. He's like, just changing carriages. It
is that smoothness of James Bond.
It's supposed to be cheesy,
it's like effortless.
but we like it.
It's like he almost like I think he actually gets like shot in the shoulder when he's in the digger and the guy's shooting at him.
Yeah.
But then once he kills that guy, it's like okay, it's just like this effort. Like I almost just died, and now it's like oh no, it was nothing. It was
nothing.
I do have a huge problem with the end of that scene, which I've already shared with these two.
Yes,
where,
yes, I do.
Take the shot.
Yeah, Emma's telling her to take the shot over and over. She's saying I don't have a clean shot. She also does not have a sniper rifle, right? It's just a regular rifle.
It's like an M4, M16
and then
with a big
her
scope,
entire career gets derailed because she told them she couldn't make a clean shot, and they told her to make the shot, and she didn't hit it.
Yeah, but these are like the best of the best, and they're supposed to be able to take the shot.
I'm sorry,
like,
it's upsetting to me.
Whatever.
It's upsetting to me.
Well, and I like the whole fighting on top of the train.
Yes,
and
it's very Nathan Drake. I love it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the tunnel comes and they both have to stop. They're like, oh shit! And then they're still fighting in the tunnel, like just using their leg sweeps and shit. It's creative. I like it. But my favorite scene is in Shanghai, I believe. It's in the skyscraper.
The fight.
I think it's just one of like the great action scenes in the last 5 years of just. There's this beautiful. I don't even. It's like an ad or something going in the background.
Yeah,
it's like
jellyfish. Jellyfish. It's so visually alluring.
Beautiful neon colors.
It's very Blade Runner.
Yeah, and you just see these, and it's all one shot of just these two black silhouettes just beating the crap out of each other, and I think it's just absolutely fantastic. And then
it's short but good.
It is short but good, and then as James Bond kicks the guy through the window over the skyscraper, like how that camera then just, it's still in the same shot, just goes over his head, and you kind of like look down, you're like, whoa!
Yeah,
it's just,
that was really great on
well
the big screen.
Just really well done.
It really did.
Next, we had to give Jackie Chan...
I'm so glad
Jackie
you chose a Jackie Chan.
I did think about it. I didn't know what to choose, and I'm glad. I think Stacy chose this one.
As you've noticed, we don't watch a lot of kung fu movies, Chinese movies. There's only a few of them on the list.
I feel like I used to when I was like in my teens. I just don't anymore.
But these Jackie Chan movies are like part of your cultural consciousness, whether you watched them or not. You know, so... Stacey, talk about the drunken boxing scene.
Okay, so the scene it's the drunken Jackie Chan scene, and it's basically like a type of fighting style. I don't even know if I've seen the whole movie, to be honest with you, but I just like watched.
We've all seen that scene, right?
Yeah.
And it's just so brilliant how they how he moves and his fluidity, yet he still maintains how wasted he is.
It's also a comedic scene.
Yes. Oh my gosh, and it just I can't get enough of how he makes his moves fluid, but still with the allure
how he just controls his body.
Yeah, it's just amazing to me. And, so I had to give a shout out.
He's a guy who does all his own stunts.
Everything.
So he's just he just knows how to move his body.
But he doesn't do his stunts in any sane, safe way.
No.
This is a strange human being.
Completely out of his mind, and it still looks great.
Some of the stuff that he does. Yeah. Like how he's not in a wheelchair is quite amazing. But I think it's like one of the great fight choreography. I mean, I think it's almost like 5 minutes long.
It is a dance choreography.
Yeah,
and you
totally.
notice that right away, and you don't care. It's not like feels choreographed. You know it's choreographed.
Yeah, but it works.
But it works. The way they use prompts, like the bench, the
I
way
love how
they use the flipping.
Yeah, I love how they also it
Yeah.
flows to how sober he is, and how sober he is in the beginning, to slowly watch as he supposedly gets drunker within a 5 minute scene of the alcohol automatically hitting him.
And I think the it's so stupid. The choreography works because of Jackie Chan. I think it just
it would not have worked with anyone else. Yeah,
he makes it work.
And it's so hard to be just a good fighter and then to be such a good actor at the same time.
Oh yeah, totally.
Well, that's the thing. There's just all these facial expressions he does throughout the fighting. It's just
it's
hilarious.
Perfect example is the one reason you like Jet Li is because of that stone face.
Right.
And Jackie Chan's the exact opposite.
Exactly.
He's so just animated in his face. He almost
yeah.
brings out every emotion he has directly just looking at his face. You know.
Totally.
And all that scene is so funny too when they go and get the alcohol and the guy's like, "Oh, wait a minute," and he's like, "Oh, somebody else will pay for it." And he's like, "Okay." Wait, don't you? Is this your job? You don't have to.
By the way, is it racist that all the voice dubbing is all?
Yes.
Oh, Chinese people are talking like this.
Yeah, it is
so bad.
But I do like there's so many great parts in there, his undulating body, when he does
each moves are as labeled
kiss.
As such a
They're when he does the kiss snake eyes or whatever it is, and then the audience goes "Oh, that was a good one."
Oh yeah, no, true.
Oh, this one's better.
Next up on the list, the iconic standoff in Tombstone.
I haven't seen Tombstone.
It's really disappointing that you haven't seen that movie. It's such a brilliant movie.
Probably my favorite Western.
Oh, by far.
I'll be your Huckleberry.
Yeah, and pretty much my favorite role he ever played. Yeah, I'll be your Huckleberry.
So it's this great, and again, tension building. You have the sheriffs. They're walking through the downtown main street to the bad guys, and it's just that music. You got the tumbleweeds rolling.
See, I like the shooting, how they edit the faces. They really build the scene just by looking at the different facial. I mean, and actually, the trigger is.
What
it was
starts
the wink.
all the shooting?
The wink.
Oh, that's right. Val Kilmer gives him the wink, and the bad guy's like, "Oh fuck!" Like shit's
about to go down.
I didn't feel like the ammo was natural at all in this. This was an unlimited ammo syndrome.
It's probably
there's
they all have revolvers.
They all have
six shot revolvers.
Yeah. And at this time, there's only 5 bullets in it, right? Because this is before the Civil War, and you can only put.
No, they had probably 6 shot revolvers.
Okay, I forget.
Yeah. I mean, it just depends on the revolver you have, but yeah.
But they were just shooting forever.
It's a fun scene. And
it is.
And then the iconic. You're a daisy if you do.
I
love that scene.
Where he just like throws his arms up. He's like, "You're a daisy if you do." And
but I mean, really, Val Kilmer kind of makes the entire movie for me.
Yeah,
so.
you should watch the movie, Tabby. They do say Val Kilmer is like one of the top Oscar snubs of all time. Like he never got nominated for that movie. He just like makes that whole movie work. It's
such a brilliant.
Next, we have a couple scenes from the movie Logan that came out. Was it 2 years ago? No, it was like last February, I think, right?
2016, no?
No, I think it was 2017. I think it was like February 2017.
Well, this is like the Wolverine, the scene in the...
We like the one in the hotel room and the one in the forest towards the end, right?
Great running at the end. That's always like a plus.
Yes.
Great running.
Well, that's the thing you
forget. It's also those single takes that you like, where they're like the long single takes.
They do. You can see where they hide the edits, but they make it seem like
it's like I got a nice fluidity to
which
it,
I love.
That forest scene has one of my least favorite things ever, which we've already talked about. But it's when the kid freezes the guy's arm and then just hits down. And please go home. Listeners, go to your freezer, take out a frozen piece of chicken, and try to punch it and see if it shatters. This is not a thing unless this kid on top of freezing people is also super strong, which is just not fair.
Yeah, you would have to be insanely strong for that to work. But whatever.
I like all the powers, though. All the kids' powers.
Yeah,
that showcases.
I think it does this for the. This is like the only Wolverine movie, and this is something that a lot of people have pointed out, is that this is the only Wolverine movie where he actually uses his hands as a weapon. In all the other Wolverine movies, you never really see him use his hands. It's actually one of the reasons that. The only reason he signed on to do another movie was because he said, like, I need my hands as weapons. Like, people need to see that I actually use these as weapons.
But what do you mean use his hands? Like
he actually uses his knives to kill people. Like, you actually see him. Most of the time in other movies, he uses, a weapon or he...
because they made it R-rated.
Yeah, well, it was that, and it also has to do with they didn't want to put the... He actually took a pay cut on this movie to make his weapon stronger so that he could actually use it.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard that too, that he took a pay cut.
He took a pay cut to get the R-rated
and to because they know they can't make as much money when it's R-rated too.
But he wanted to make his last scene more realistic in the fact that his hands are actually.
The camera's on the side. He's going through the forest. Then he's just flying through the air and he stabs the bad guy. It's cool.
Yeah.
And then. The hotel scene?
I think the hotel scene, I think, is the best scene in the movie.
I want to see that scene without the effects of just actors walking really slowly.
But yeah, it's...
The camera work is so great. It's so
a
great.
really cool
the one
scene.
guy who can only move his eye and he's
I was going to say that. He's seeing him, but he can't do anything, and then just gets stabbed in the face. It's
the light is really great of the framing of the two. There's two guns from the top angles going on Patrick Stewart in the wheelchair, and then the light from the window is shining onto them.
He's this greater being.
Yeah,
right?
that's a really, really great scene too. The whole scene, cool. I don't know that I've seen anything exactly like that before, where it's this slow motion, but in a really interesting way.
Right.
So
it's a good original scene. I like it. 12 Bullets. I forget which scene.
Deadpool.
Oh, that's right, the Deadpool 12 Bullets scene.
This is the only superhero movie that made mine, and I guess it's because it's got the R rating. Well, other than Logan.
Can you explain that scene to me? Because why could he not pick up other ammo from the guys that are falling down the way?
It's kind of the comedy of it. Yeah, he's it's a challenge to him to see if he could get through with 12 bullets. He's a giant goober. He's a jackass through the entire every movie. He makes fun of everything.
Like the bullets are numbered. Like,
Yeah,
you know?
like,
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't get that.
It's just
he forgot. Okay, so the scene leading up to it is he had a big bag of weapons and he leaves it
in the taxi cab.
The taxi cab. So he's like, "Oh crap! Like I left it. I have 12
Okay.
bullets. Let's see what I can do."
Right.
But
No,
I just think
yeah.
the slow motion of the scene and how he's
Yeah.
like counting. I just love how it's cut and edited.
No, I'm totally there with you. I think it's a fun scene. It's a good comedic action scene. I think.
That makes more sense to me because I don't. This is another thing that John Wick kind of like revamped is when people are not picking up ammo and are not using their environment and are throwing their weapons away. It really bothers me. So now that I get what the scene is about. Also the way the cars are set up. I don't know why those cars are stopped there, but it was very well done and using then the cars to move from point to point. So.
Yeah. Natural obstacles.
Yes.
No, it's a fun scene, and yeah, really, it's got good slow motion for sure. A nice open
and witty like commentary, like the
right up Main Street.
script is like hilarious.
All right, next, this was on my list. It's the scene in Road to Perdition when he has to kill.
Scene in the Rain.
I can't think of it. I'm like blanking on every actor's
Paul
name
Newman.
today. Paul Newman, thank you. It's, he has to kill Paul Newman. There's just no other way. And it's just the scene in the rain, and they're walking out of the shop, and it just all goes quiet. Mm-hmm. And then you just see the guys, they're getting the bullets just plugged into them, and they're just falling down, and the rain's going. And you see, like, the muzzle flash from Tom Hanks's gun. And it's just the music. It's like it might be my favorite music soundtrack for a movie of all time. It's just absolutely beautiful. And then to have at the very end, he walks up to Paul Newman, and
there's a dialogue,
and then the sound comes back. You hear the rain, and Paul Newman's like, "I'm glad it's you." And then you hear again just the impact of the gunshots because it's really all you hear, and it's just a great sound. And then there's this little detail I really like after he shoots Paul Newman. The smoke from the gun kind of comes from off screen where he was shooting him and like flows on his face. Like it's those little details that I really appreciate. It's because we know it's a movie, we know it's a fake gun, but to actually then have the smoke because the gun is blazing hot.
Steam from the rain.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's the little details that really make that scene. I mean, it just how they use different techniques to like, so it's not, and that's the difference between like the evolution of action movies versus like back in the day when, again, like a Rambo where it's like, so like the colors are blah, like everything, to this where they actually like use like no sound as a part of the thing versus the opposite.
And I think it's an interesting point of just, there's so many little things that go into like a great action scene for me, and it's the sound, it's the way the camera not only moves, but what kind of shot are we taking? Like I really like the wide shots for the most part, and then it's also choreography of the whole action scene. I think when you have all those things like working together in harmony, it's magic.
All right.
Next up, the movie The Accountant with Ben Affleck.
Great movie.
We all appreciate this
amazing
movie. It's a fun movie, underrated.
People riding on glass, classic.
Always good. It was Ben Affleck's Good Will Hunting.
But he was in Good Will Hunting.
I know, but he was the idiot in Good Will Hunting. He's like the meathead, right?
Did you
and now
know?
he's like, I'm
did
the
you
smart
know
guy
that
now.
their scenes were actually half and half, and
I know,
then they
and
figured out?
Well, the studio was like, well, someone needs to be the lead, so they had to cut. Yeah. But yeah, it's the scene on the farm where he's saving his client's life. It's just.
He's outrunning a car. I love that. He's outrunning the car.
No, he shoots the engine. The car's slowing down.
Right,
so he catches
but he's
up
still
to it.
catching up to it. Then jumps in the bed of the thing.
And again, then he's got this giant 50 caliber sniper rifle.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's just such a great impact.
I love the fact that he, in every action movie, what's the first thing they do with their fist is they put their fist through the glass. Mm-hmm. Okay, first of all, I know he uses his foot, which is actually covered by a shoe, which makes way more sense than if you use your fist, which has nothing.
Love the Ryan Gosling scene of him punching the glass and taking him to the hospital.
I don't know, I just think that was such because it kind of draws to his character and how intelligent he is and how he would have planned that out. Right. You know what I mean? I don't know, it just...
No, it's a pretty short scene, but it's action-packed, it's good choreography. I love... The guy whips out this giant knife, and then he's like, "Well, I got my belt," and he just
This is what I'm always talking about. This is what they teach you in self-defense. Like, do not if you have a gun and it's out of ammo, nobody would throw that away. You're using it as a weapon, which will come up again once we talk about Atomic Blonde.
But it's no way a funny movie, but that scene has a couple just funny parts where he's whipping this guy with the belt, and this guy's like. What does the guy say? He's like, can't figure out why he can't beat this guy, right? He's like, who is this guy? And then at the very end,
that awkward wave
chokes the guy out. And it's just violent. You see Ben Affleck's vein is popping in his forehead. It's like, and then after all is said and done, you see it from inside the car, and the two people they're just sitting in the car the whole time, what is going on? And you see Ben Affleck, and he just gives him this little awkward wave, hello there. It just cracks me up. But that's a good scene. I like that one.
I just think they do such a nice job in that movie of, using the, really drawing out the autistic characteristics of, how he interacts with, people and stuff. I just think it's,
not that we... Sorry, go ahead.
No,
not that we need to go into talking about the whole movie and the criticisms it received. It was saying mentally ill people aren't assassins, and I'm but it's an action movie with a mentally ill person. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I know it's not realistic. I get that. I don't think mentally ill people are out there with their sniper rifles.
It's just
I don't think every white guy in his suit is out there.
I appreciate it.
Next up, Mad Max, which is mostly cars, but there's a great scene when Furiosa meets Mad Max there in the desert when the car is broken down.
Yeah. Aren't they tied together still? Nick Holt and Tom Hardy?
They're tied together. And he still has his mask on, right? And he wants the girls
to have that movie.
And they're about to cut his mask off, and then all of a sudden you see Furiosa has been hiding behind the girls, and she's just charging at him and tackles him. And there's just this whole fight scene, and again, using their environment. He's using the door to block the wrench she has, and just an awesome fight scene. She's trying to get to the gun at one point, and...
and that scene to where Nick Holt has the ammo at the end and holds it, and he's reloading
and
it.
There's so much going on, because you have Nick Holt tied to him still, who then he's using that chain in certain ways, and the girls are holding Nick Holt
back. Which I didn't realize this, but Splendid, the pregnant lady, is the one who takes charge and is the first one to use her weight to hold him back. So
it's a great fight scene, and. Yeah.
And also this scene, I think the whole movie does this, because Mad Max, doesn't he see things in a speed up way or whatever? Or am I making
there's these weird... Yeah.
But the whole movie does this where it speeds up scenes, but it doesn't feel unnatural. It still is fun and in the
I feel it draws on the adrenaline. It almost plays a role. That's how, in reality, certain... how your mind views things during certain things are related to your emotion. And adrenaline makes the things speed up, and when you are what's the word I'm looking for, when you're thinking about something, you it slows things down. Do you know what I mean? So it's I love the usage of that in this movie, in this scene.
And then also the sound of his ears ringing.
When
from
there's
just one gunshot next to his head, and you're
finally,
there's consequences.
It would make more than your ear ring.
Right, but I appreciate it still.
And I think there's something to be said. Sometimes an action scene becomes even greater when you have, two great actors who are, God, these guys are finally in a movie together, and they're sparring off with each other, right? There's just a great payoff with that. The Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron.
Well, I think I love about that is that they use the man versus women, but they still play on the strength aspect of this is. I like how he is dominating, like, in terms of strength, but she uses, like, the weapons in a more...
And she's smarter,
Yeah,
too.
and she uses her brain.
Well,
so I really like how they take the characteristics of the people, of the actors, and, like, use it in the scene to, like, make sense.
He's like an
versus...
animal. He's like a
Never
dog.
mind that she only has one arm, and she almost beats him. You know?
Yeah.
So... All right, next up, you were going to surprise me with this pick, and then I told you I had it on my list. It's The Princess Bride on top of it's the sword fight on top of the mountain there when he's chasing them against Inigo Montoya. And it's a cool scene because there are some consequences to the action, right? Like, it is, like, shit, we have swords here. One of us gets stabbed, right? We die. And there's this mutual respect between the characters, but they also, it's a dangerous fight. And then there's also, like, this comedic underlying element to everything.
Oh, yeah, the dialogue is not slowed down. It's on snappy
Point.
with
And
the
they're, like,
action.
they have great charisma, like, between the two actors, like, throughout the entire scene.
There's no fat in the scene at all.
Yeah.
It's just, like, a perfect scene.
It's also a great set. It's a set.
It is,
you see the mats on the ground, but it's fine.
It doesn't bother me at all.
It's fantasy,
It's just, it has this great fantasy vibe to it. And from what I've seen some interviews on this. From what I hear, the sword fighting is actually, like, super realistic. And I think they trained with, like, real swords at some point. But, like, I think anyone who's an actual sword fighter, they always say, like, go watch that scene because I know the actors trained super hard, and it's, like, pretty realistic as far as sword fighting goes with those types of swords. Like, those swords have a certain name. I forget what it is, but
it's like the English style,
bigger than a rapier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's fencing. It's fencing.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Fencing, yeah, it's a fencing style.
But what I like, I like how they actually, like, apply the rules to the fencing and, like, how it's not...
Right.
I don't know how to explain it. It's more, like, elegant in how they do it. There's, like, a dance to it.
Well, and it's this... And you see this when you... Like, if you ever watch real fencing, there's this kind of, like, tension, and then there's just... It happens really fast.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
And you get that a lot in this scene where it's like...
in the air.
They're going back and forth, and it's like, clink, 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 clink. And then it, like, stops again for a minute.
Talking,
clink, clink, clink,
assessing, and then,
yeah,
back to... Yeah, excellent.
All right, next up, this was my pick, another comedic action scene, the Anchorman fight scene where all the anchors are fighting each other. I just think it's hilarious, and the dialogue's hilarious. You have all these cameos showing up, and just the action is completely ridiculous. You have the guy with Steve Carell throws a trident. There's just a random guy on fire.
There's a net. Somebody has a net.
It's just like, it's absolutely fantastic, and it just...
I love in the beginning when they show up on the bikes, but then they don't park the bikes. They just, like, toss them in the corner.
Like, and it almost, like, makes fun of action scenes in a way, just that guy, all of a sudden, he's on fire walking through the scene, right?
Right.
It's just like... It's
the pitchfork, like, randomly.
Yeah. Yeah, he has, like, a grenade he throws.
Oh, my God, that's right.
The horses with a net. Yeah, it's just hilarious. I love it. Next up...
You didn't talk about Inception.
Inception? Did I have that on my list?
You did.
I did. I didn't write it down, did I? That's the one I forgot to write down. God bless you.
This is the hallway moving
There's
scene.
a lot of hallway fights on our list. Yeah, it's the moving hallway fight scene in Inception was also on my list.
I just like how they use the two worlds, like, to counteract each other. They do such a nice job of, like, slowing down the flip of the car, the flip of the van to, like, the room, and, like, using, like, using,
and you have
like,
to, because if you remember, the next level is I forget. Like, for every 1 second in the real world, like, 10 seconds go by or whatever.
It's like a timing thing, but it's just so beautifully done.
Yeah, I have to give it to you. It is a good scene. I was like, no, it's not, because this movie goes on forever and ever, and I zoned out halfway through, and I was like, this doesn't make sense anymore, and then I saw the scene all by itself, and I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool.
And it's just...
it's very original.
It is super original.
It's, like, super original. It's a super original idea. They do such a, like, it's just...
Well, and if you don't know this, the really cool thing, which I appreciate, is Christopher Nolan's big on, like, doing things practical effects style, so they built this entire long hallway set, and it could actually rotate, right? So they filmed the whole thing, and they didn't just rotate the camera and like use special effects. Like they actually rotated the hallway. And
was that a long? Like, did they film that? I mean, I know they had editing in it, but it seemed like very fluid.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think there's any. Yeah, I mean, it is.
I almost feel like they filmed long shot and then they edited in two scenes.
The whole thing was rotating as they're shooting it. They didn't shoot it, rotate it.
Yeah, so they had to have done the editing to show the two different scenes like counteract. You got to give credit for the editing on that too, because you had to have like perfect timing to like.
Yeah, I just think it's a really cool scene, and then just. Yeah, I mean, at the end, just they're fighting for the gun, and it just takes out one gunshot and the guy's dead, right? It's not just like a stupid shootout or anything. Yeah, just a cool scene. I like it a lot. Next up was the Red Room fight, right? In the last Star Wars movie, The Last Jedi.
Stacy, why did you pick this scene?
It's my son's favorite scene, actually.
Well, your son's not here, is he?
So I thought I enjoyed being included. I love the music in it. I think it's super epic. I really like the bright screaming red. I think that just phenomenal. I did rewatching the scene, not like the editing.
I didn't like it as much.
I remember really liking it when I watched it in theater, and I don't know if maybe something has to do with like being on big screen and like it really like draws you in.
There's this weird cut right in the middle of the action. Does that Star Wars edit swipe across the screen? Like it just seems really unnecessary.
There were actually a few of those, and this is something I really don't like in action scenes when there's something happening, there's a cut to something else, but what happened previously is not carried through to the next thing.
Right.
There was a lot of that. It was like these two people were engaged, but then we cut back to Kylo Ren, and then all of a sudden something completely
I feel like those are the scenes where there was supposed to be much more in the scene, and they were told to cut it, and they just cut. You know what I mean?
I'm sure there's way more footage.
I just felt that there was honestly, like I really didn't like how. It was almost too fluid. It like didn't come off right to me.
Oh really? I don't think it's fluid at all.
Later, watching it, like the scenes looked a little too rehearsed in certain parts. Like they didn't pull off the action scenes as well as I had thought
Actually,
they had.
I have something to say about that.
Yeah.
So in the very beginning, where they're back to back, I need everyone to rewatch that scene and just focus on each background actor. There are people just spinning for no reason. There are two red guys fighting each other. There is...
Wait, there is?
Yeah, you need to watch like the background actors. They're not doing anything at some points, or just attacking the air, or
weird.
It's seriously just a choreographed scene.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I just looked. I mean, I didn't catch it the first time I watched it, and then when I rewatched it just like a little while ago, like really paying attention to that aspect of it, I was like, huh.
Well, and I think
that didn't work for me now.
Yeah,
that's a failure of a director he's never really made like an action. What's his name? Rian Johnson, I think it is. I mean, he's made like just kind of indie movies before Star Wars, and I don't think he has a lot of experience making like a grand action scene.
Yeah, like big money comes into play.
Also, why is there a meat grinder in the floor? You know,
and there's this thing of
the armor.
Sometimes the armor blocks the lightsaber, and sometimes it doesn't. It's like there's a lot of just inconsistencies, and I think that scene could be so much better. And
also,
it's kind of
the scene of Rey getting choked out and then she drops her lightsaber and catches it. You dropping your lightsaber isn't stopping you from being choked out.
Right.
Like they'd have to let go of you for you to do that sweep below.
Yeah.
And does have some really cool things where she throws her lightsaber and then Krylo catches her and he like
Kylo
Ben.
I do think it's a really cool scene, and I still like the scene, but
that's why I said I had to give note to it because it is like
aesthetically
pleasing. Aesthetically pleasing, and a lot of like people really like that's supposed to be like the scene, you know.
Totally.
So I thought it definitely needed to be mentioned, but looking back at it, I did find some flaws.
I think it could be better.
Yeah.
And since we're on Star Wars, let's talk about on Tubby's list, Episode 5, the iconic...
There's nothing we need to say about it.
There's really nothing to say, right?
It explains itself.
Yeah.
So,
you've seen that on so many posters, those two colors.
Right, but does it make it an actual good action scene?
I just rewatched it, and I think it does.
It does?
There's a lot of... that was one of the most violent things I watched as a kid, and I remember
That's
that
true.
having a huge
Getting
impact
the hand
on
chopped
me.
off.
So even as like maybe a nostalgia factor, I chose this, and him being in that hallway and just Darth Vader is just throwing stuff at him, and he's there's the wind blowing, and in that scene I'm like, he's not gonna be okay. Like Yoda was right. Like I remember watching it the first time, and I'm like, Luke is not making it, and then he gets his arm chopped off, and I'm like, no, like I didn't know, how it's gonna end.
Right.
We know now because Star Wars is everywhere.
I do really like how they use the background in the scene, and like instead of just using their weapons, which I think wasn't done as much back then.
Yeah,
and
it's got that great there's that one part where it's just you got the silhouettes kind of with just the bright
the red and the blue is just
goodness.
amazing. Like that's just it's really visual, and that was, I think that's a lot of what Star Wars did for a lot of movies, was really focus on the visual.
Yeah, and I remember being legitimately afraid. I know it's a joke now, they're like Darth Vader breathing.
That was such a great noise. Sure. It's like the Jaws noise. It's such a great noise. It's so simple, but it's so scary.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah.
Right. I think Star Wars always has done a pretty good job with like colors. Though,
well, that's what I'm saying. It's like one of the first movies that really visually like just used colors, and I feel like a lot of movies have like it started that. It's like it's
the Last
iconic.
Jedi had some cool colors throughout. It's salt.
Yeah. It's not snow.
All right, next up we had the movie Creed, boxing movie. It's the second big fight. It's Creed versus Leo. It's like his first major. It's like a semi-professional fight.
We just watched it, and I was taking notes, and every time I looked up, I was like, "Is it still one shot?
It's about 4 minutes 30 seconds of like one single shot, and I don't know if they hid an edit in there somewhere. As far as I've read, it's all one shot. And it's, never mind that it's just like a crazy technical achievement to have, because you have a lot of actors. There's
like perfect
in
timing
between the rounds, and you have Sylvester Stallone's yelling at him from the ring, and the camera goes to him, and then swings back to the fight, and it's going like in between the fighters and going back out, and you're like in the ring, and you're like in the action, and it does feel a tiny bit choreographed to me at times, but I think it's hard not to when you have to plan out 4 minutes of hand-to-hand combat, and I don't know. I just think it's. I had just never seen. There's a few things in that movie. I just never seen something filmed the way. What's his name? Ryan Coogler. Who's the director? Black Panther.
Yeah.
Coogler.
We're amazing. We watch movies.
Yeah. Right. I can't think of anyone's name today. Just the way he shot some of those action scenes, and it makes the final action scene of that movie is shot completely different. It's shot from like the perspective of the audience. It's like outside the ring, and I don't like it as much. But this fight scene, you're like in the ring, and it's just all one take. And
I think what they do awesome. It's also really I don't know if you guys noticed, but you notice how blurred the audience is throughout the entire scene.
Yeah.
So like I kind of feel like that's so like how your vision actually works when you're focusing in, like the things around you become so like blurry, especially when you're on an autofocus.
Well, you gotta remember you have all these lights shining down on you.
Yeah,
you wouldn't really see the audience.
I know, but I think it's such a small, like I know it's like it's so, but it's like such a thing that like makes you really focus in on what's occurring.
Yeah,
and I really like that.
Fantastic. I love that scene. It's like a great fighting scene.
I also really like how the music works. It's like you build the music with the fight according to how like the hero in the like who you want to win, the music builds with him. You know what I mean?
Because in the second part, once he gets up from the corner, the music starts, that iconic music starts, and then also the fighting becomes faster, even though they're more tired. It's like we're more in it now.
Yeah,
like, damn.
Totally.
And then also there's a really great line when Rocky's coaching him, and he goes, "Your old man did that to me, and it worked." Like, there's the emotional kind of like gravitas between the two characters. Even though this is a fighting scene, it doesn't ever let us forget that it's about these two people building a relationship.
Yeah,
no, nice point.
That's a really good point.
That's one of my favorite movies, just in recent memory. I've seen it like multiple times since it came out. So, anyways. Next up, I had the original Old Boy movie, which came out a while ago now. There's a very iconic hallway scene that's all again, one take, which I have a hard on for.
Yeah,
I don't think you guys really liked it that much.
They lost the whole wall.
What do you mean?
Like, okay, remember how I said in the beginning, you see that there's a hallway and it's 2 walls. Well, they made the camera the second wall, but you have no play on anyone going against that wall or anything like that. So it made it like it was one side of the. It just ruined the whole scene for me.
It didn't give the hallway effect.
Oh
well,
my
because
God,
it becomes
it's
a 2-dimensional scene.
I know, but it's just you can't come at it from it being in a hall and then make the wall disappear and then make that wall not even exist. Like everything was pounded up against one wall, and like there was like nothing.
Mario
it was like basically, it's
like playing 2D Mario, Paper Mario.
Yeah,
fascinating.
I from that moment it like lost me. I was like, wait, where'd the wall go?
See, I think you noticed that, and then you got hung up on it.
Yeah, well,
it
is
fine. Yeah.
It just that, and then there was like no, cause and effect, and I like the fighting scenes that we chose. Like I don't know if we haven't done an atomic bomb.
Sure.
You got to have to react to the stabbing. Like that's one of the reasons why I loved, Matrix. Any of them, any of those scenes where there's like really good fight scene, like people react to being injured, and it's like he got stabbed in the back, and the knife is still there throughout the entire scene. Yet you see nothing of pain in his face.
Which, by the way, listeners, if you have something stuck in your body, unless it's obstructing your airway, do not take it out.
Yeah. She just took a self-defense class, by the way.
My first aid class.
I get the criticisms, and it's by no way my favorite scene of all time.
But it's a realistic brawl. This is how people fight. They're clumsy. He's stepping on the weapon on the ground.
Super clumsy. It's violent. He has the hammer that he's swinging at people.
I appreciated that because
I remember remember Sean from Boulder, who we used to work with. He's the one who first showed me that scene, and I was like maybe 19 years old at that time. I had never seen just kind of a single take scene like that, and I just kind of blew my mind at the time. And I think it still holds up. It's just kind of a cool scene.
All right.
What's next? Yeah, let's go into The Matrix, which you could honestly pick a plethora of scenes from.
Oh, yes, you can.
But, I think the first movie is all of our favorites.
Absolutely.
And there's just some amazing, revolutionary scenes that still, you could see them in the movie theater today, and they would still more than hold up. Even, I think it's some of the best action scenes of all time. And I think all of our favorite is that scene in the subway. I know mine is.
I just love how it starts with the freaking newspaper slowly floating.
Yeah, it's like the modern tumbleweed,
right? Oh, guys, love that.
It's got that spaghetti western rattlesnake instrument, and then that newspaper. It's like a modern western.
And also,
standoff.
this is one of what we all love. What Stacey just talked about. It's the graceful kung fu against the brute force.
Exactly.
And
he's met his match in it's like the challenge for his movie, this fighting scene, and it's the music's great, just the sound effects are great.
That scene of him getting up from the dust, and he's raising his arms, and
you can
dust
see the
is
dust
flying
falls off, and that's just that iconic come at me thing.
And I love how they slow down. I know it's part of the idea of them moving so fast, so they have to slow certain scenes down, but I just love the slow-mo that they do throughout that scene.
Can I also say something about Keanu Reeves in that movie and how that movie has such a cultural impact, and he was seen as the handsome guy you wanted to be with, and he has a normal body shape, who's fit, and he doesn't have to wear a bra because he has triple D muscles popping out of his. So I really appreciate that. I'm all about male body positivity, even that is he's a working out kind of guy, right? He's a fit guy. This is what a normal fit guy looks like.
That scene to me, it's just so many iconic my name is Neo, and the come at me thing, that dust falling off of him, you're empty, so are you. It's just I know that whole scene by heart.
The symmetry of that scene of them running at each other and flying at each other.
Amazing.
They're coming at each other from different opposing angles.
And it just had things in it that I'd never seen when I first when he stops when the agent stops Neo's punch and then Neo extends his hand and like cuts into his throat. Like I love that.
Yeah. And I also like that that we're still afraid of him not being safe after he lands. There's that shot of his feet kind of teetering on the edge because he's about to face plant into the subway.
And I think the fighting choreography is just next. Like one of my favorite moves is when the agent sweeps his legs out from underneath Neo, and then Neo's like sideways in the air, and then he punches him, and he flies sideways into the wall. I love that.
Doesn't Keanu Reeves have most of his own stunts too? Like, isn't he kind of known for that?
I don't know if back then he did. But
I know he does now, but I was just curious.
I wouldn't be surprised. Just a fantastic scene.
And there's also just some good basic movie making skills, like making the set feel realistic. When the subway comes, you hear the noise, and then there's also the wind, so that lets you know like the subway's coming. So.
That's the sound of inevitability. I just quote that movie all day long.
Yes, you can.
Next up, a movie Atomic Blonde, another underrated gem. There is one of the all-time great action scenes in the staircase about 3/4 way through the movie.
Yeah, this would have made all three of our lists.
If you have not seen this scene, like, you don't even have to watch the whole movie. Just watch that scene. And I remember like watching that in the theater, and I know you were like on the edge of your seat, Tabby,
and I was breathe by the end because people actually get winded.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It was just the stumbling around of how like they just kept. The scene where they couldn't both of them kept trying to get up, and neither of them could get up, and they fell down like 3 times. Yeah. But yet they know that if they don't get up, they have to because they've got to finish it.
You'd be so out of breath, like fighting.
Just the exhaustion.
In general. Never mind that this is like what the 80s, everyone's like smoking cigarettes and drinking. Like no one, even though you're a special agent, you're not like in great shape, right?
Yeah.
So it's like
I don't know, the pain. You can just feel their pain.
Oh my god!
You feel the realness of the scene.
I get like weirdly emotional just from I can just like feel her exhaustion. It like exhausts me, and I don't know if I wonder if they do anything with her makeup throughout the scene, because as she's getting more and more beat up, there's one time where it pans around to her face and it seems like she's just more pale than she was before, right?
Well, I mean, didn't she do a lot of her own stunts too?
I think she did pretty much.
Because I mean, from what I've seen, I did watch like a making of the movie, and like they show her doing like
she does do it.
So
and
many of the
stunts. Her face isn't all. I mean, when you have your face in the scene, you can't really use a stunt double.
Yeah. No, and then she's gonna feel exhausted if she's doing those moves. I mean, they're like hardcore moves. It's not like an easy
and you're doing
scene
that
to
all
film.
Day,
multiple days. So I mean, I'm sure you see the wear and tear because it's just naturally what occurs when you're like exhausting yourself.
And it's just the fact that like these guys are like 250 pounds of muscle, and she's maybe like 170, right? And so she has to use all these tools to keep.
That's what I love. Smaller, I love how they use the scenes around, like everything around her.
So she has these heels on her boots. She's like multiple times she like kicks them with the heel, right, to dig in.
She's changing the grip on her gun, using it as a weapon. Yep. She's finding the lamp, the stovetop,
all these props. Is it a corkscrew or is it I thought it was a letter opener.
No, it's a wine opener.
It's a wine opener, like an old school wine opener.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an amazing action scene. And I think it was done in, I think it's like 3 shots total, all put together, and they make it like pretty much seem like one.
And the exhaustion thing also, she doesn't constantly attack. Once somebody's hurt, she waits for what they're gonna do because it's that energy conservation thing. So she's not going. There's a lot of scenes of them kind of looking at each other, and she's like, is he gonna fall? Is he gonna attack?
It's a lot more mental. I feel like there's a lot more mental, like...
And she just
exertion.
Gets absolutely the crap beaten out of her, and it's fantastic.
Oh, and you really like feel it.
Sorry, I have to mention the camera work in this movie, especially in the scene later when they're in the apartment. And the camera is kind of like it's almost as if it doesn't know what's about to happen in the scene. And it pans around, and then there's the guy like wrapping up his wounds with the duct tape, or there's things sneak up on you in the scene and the way the camera moves that I feel I hadn't seen in a really long time. So I really appreciate
camera's
that.
just like reacting as things happen.
Exactly.
Next up, I had a really short scene from the movie Collateral with Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx, and there's a scene where Jamie Foxx is tied to the steering wheel of the car as Tom Cruise is killing someone upstairs, and these these two thugs walk down this alleyway and see Jamie Foxx there and like take everything out of the car, like rob him, and then right as they're walking away, Tom Cruise comes back and they have Tom Cruise's suitcase, and he's like, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" And then as they're
homie.
I just love,
hey homie.
Yeah, I love that. I love Tom Cruise with silver hair going, "Hey homie."
Yeah.
I just love like they point the gun at Tom Cruise and he like raises his arm and then like boom swings the arm across and like knocks the gun out.
And also it's not filmed close up; it's filmed as if you're Jamie Foxx in the car,
kind of watching.
Totally.
Yeah, that's really nice.
And again, that's a Michael Mann movie, and just the gunshot noise, because you're in the alleyway and it's got this great echo to it. It's just like boom, 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 like as Tom Cruise is shooting them. I love that kind of stuff, and it's really quick, but it seems like that's really the only thing you could do if you're Tom Cruise is like you put up your hands and then like rotate it across, right, to like knock it out. It's just kind of like this practical martial arts, and then he just he's a hitman, so he just puts how quickly he draws the gun. And like I saw the behind the scenes stuff, like Tom Cruise did so much gun work on that movie, especially for that nightclub scene in the movie, which is also great. And just I wouldn't mess with Tom Cruise. But yeah, I just love that scene. I also chose the whole opening for Saving Private Ryan, which I think to this day there's nothing I've ever seen like it. Just how it does not glorify like war at all, and just how brutal it is, and it's a lot of long shots, and it's just an absolutely epic of a scene. Like I don't even know how. It's so many actors and there's so much stuff going on, and I think it's still my favorite Steven Spielberg movie.
And on top of that, it's a period piece, so that you have to invest more money in the costumes and finding the weapons and
just a crazy scene. And just when everything goes silent and you see like Tom Hanks and he's looking, or then you see it from his perspective, and he's just seeing
guy picking up the arm. I forgot about that.
Oh, that guy carrying
all
the arm
the
was like
horrific stuff going on, and he's like, "Holy shit!" Like,
it just really like shows the chaos and like how you just like the insanity of war.
And how those two wars were just chaos based on the new technology available.
I've never seen a war movie like that, and I think the whole scene's like 30 minutes long. It's just
speaking
epic.
Of 30-minute long scenes, I have on here the entire Helm's Deep encounter from the two towers. I know that horses can't run down hills that steep. I know you can't use the shield as a surfboard. That there's a lot of stuff happening.
Nobody cares. It's all
dying,
good.
And Aragorn's like, no, Haldir.
It's like 30 minutes long, right?
Dude, it's insane.
It's an insane scene.
We can't talk about the whole thing, but
I don't even know where to start with that scene.
It's an achievement, definitely.
If you can call it a scene, it's just like...
It's epic.
Yeah, it's like a quarter of the movie.
Yeah. It's a quarter of the book, too.
Does it ever cut back, or it's just that scene for 30 minutes, right? Does it cut like to anything else happening and then come back to the Helm's Deep? Or is it just Helm's Deep, right?
No, you know what? I think it undercuts with the trees attacking.
Right, that's what I thought.
They flash back and
forth.
forth.
That's what I thought. And just, you think they're winning for a second, and then that guy blows up the wall, and you're like, shit.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. On Tubby's list, we just watched this in the movie Hero. We just called The Green Fight.
You can pick any fight from that movie.
Beautiful movie.
The Green Fight, when they're storming the castle, and it's just these two people going through a mob, and the swords are flying, the shields are flying, and they're just going through there. Also, in this whole movie, we're concerned with the environment around us, not just the two people fighting in it. The chess court, the leaves, you can point to any number of them. It's always green
tapestries that are just like play such an important role in that last green fight scene.
At the end of that scene, when they're running at each other, and then it speeds up as if they're like on a really fast. That could be comical and ridiculous, but for some reason that scene, it's really cool. It's like tension building. They're coming at each other.
Well,
I think it's just shot so beautiful.
No, I saw it because throughout the movie, people are like sort of flying, right?
Exactly.
It's like
Yeah,
a sniper, and so that's what it. They're starting to run each other, and then instead
flying.
of it bouncing, it just like goes straight, like they're just gliding at each other.
It's really cool.
Yeah. And it's this great close up, and it's just so beautiful with all these green, tapestries hanging that are falling. They're falling so slowly as all this stuff is happening, right? And then the scene is done by the time those are falling down, and it's just it's a really pretty fight scene. All right, only 2 more. We're almost done. We got the first big fight in the movie 300.
That's again another one I chose just for its aesthetic reason, and it was back in the day when Zack Snyder knew what he was about. I don't know why they still let him.
It's like peak Zack Snyder to me, right?
He should be just a director of photography. Like his stuff is beautiful, but it doesn't always.
I just loved how brown everything was, and then you just see the red of the.
It's like the chrome filter over.
It was really done. I was just really done right, and I love the brute strength of it all. Like you see, just like, but it's so planned. Like push. Jab, it was done really well.
Well, it is. It's like it's this group of 300 hyper
naked people in sandals,
soldiers who have they have this system down against just these thousands of people who have no idea what they're really doing. They're just running at it with swords. They have no fighting system at all.
It's kind of like that Crouching Tiger scene. It's the many different techniques against the one weapon or the one technique. And then at the end where you see the leader Spartan, and it just has that scene of him killing all the people. If you notice,
Gerard Butler.
If you notice, the camera zooms out and then zooms in, and there is a speed difference. Yeah. And every time I watch it, it makes me think this is panels because it's based on a comic book, right? It's
totally. Exactly.
So every time I watch it, I'm like, oh, it's panel by panel, but it's a movie.
Yeah.
Well, and that's just that is kind of that Zack Snyder style of zooming in, out, and messing with
every
the
time
speed.
He goes in, it's
beautiful scene,
death.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And the speed correlating with what's happening with the action. And it's I think Zack Snyder really discovering what he likes to do, and it's the first time really all of us saw that type, the Zack Snyderism, what he's famous for doing, and it all blew our minds, and it's still beautiful today. And then I think after that movie, Zack Snyder decided, I'm going to make every single scene like this. and so when you have every scene like that, it loses the impact of it. Mm-hmm. But you have, when it's only a few times per movie, it's just got this amazing impact to the action.
Yeah. Your scenes are beautiful. Those pearls flying everywhere still make it a good movie.
But if you watch, I think, was it Batman versus Superman? He just has these beautiful slow motion scenes, but it's every 5 minutes, and then
so it's a little overwhelming.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just Zack Snyder's this monster that's consuming himself. It's what are you doing, Zack Snyder? Last but not least, the movie Equilibrium, which I don't think a lot of people have seen. It's just, I think it was looked at as a Matrix ripoff at the time, but it's really not. It's just a different movie, and it's original. It's the whole thing is these special agents have this technique called gun kata, right? And it's this kung fu, but with these automatic pistols.
It doesn't make sense, but it
doesn't
looks
have
so
to.
great.
It looks amazing. And it's Babyface.
Christian Bale.
Babyface
Who has
Christian
a great
Bale.
walk, I noticed. You have to have a great walk, power walk.
Well, he's this very robotic, right?
Yep.
He's supposed to have no emotions, and that's how he was raised. And it's just very, stiff, robotic walk.
And this is a close-up of him holding the guns. One's up and one's down. And that's how he ends his gun kata.
Really,
scenes from above where it's and then his arms are just flailing.
We're just picking all the gun kata scenes.
Yeah.
I don't think we have a specific one.
It's
but
just a good idea.
The whole gun kata thing is just absolutely amazingly done.
And the last hand-to-hand is really good, but then I realized there are a lot of cuts in that scene as well.
I'm glad you brought that up. Because I wrote that down. I'm this is one of those instances where the quick cuts worked for me, and I can't place my finger on why, but especially in that final fight where he's doing the gun kata against the boss, right? And there's just
They're
all these
blocking
quick cuts.
each other. Yeah.
I don't know. The quick cuts didn't bother me. It just kind of worked with the fighting style and like all the quick gunshots and the hand movements. Because it was quick cuts, but I could still kind of tell what was going on. Like, I don't know. Mm-hmm. It didn't bother me.
They
I
didn't
think
forget
it worked.
the follow through. Like sometimes when you do quick cuts, there's like she pointed it out earlier. It's like the follow through. You don't know what's going on with that scene. It's like it just dies.
Right.
And this, it was very like it was put together perfectly. Like the editing was done where it worked and it looked like it.
Yeah, it didn't bother me at all, and I think it actually kind of worked. And I was imagining in my head, okay, what does this scene look like in like a John Wick movie, right? Because it would just be a wide angle, and you just see them doing all this thing, and I think maybe it looks silly because it's kind of the whole idea of gun kata is silly, right? So maybe you need the quick cuts to kind of hide that. I don't know.
And I do, even though it doesn't make any sense that he has like the stabby things at the end of this gun, and then he switches to holding the barrel and doing that. I think it's just a way of making this more interesting and adding another element to it.
Sure.
Even though it's not effective, you could have just
been out of
shot
bullets
those
too.
people.
I don't know.
Oh, was he out of bullets? I don't know.
Because that is a thing that movie does. You don't have unlimited ammo. Like right before the final fight, he throws those magazines down the hall.
Yeah, he does definitely count his
ammo later.
Yeah, he definitely counts his bullets, which is actually smart.
Yeah, it's one of those like it's not quite unlimited ammo.
He has
but
like ammo in his sleeve.
Yeah,
oh,
the
God.
guns come out of the sleeve.
It's ridiculous.
It's amazing. Yeah,
that's basically it.
Jesus.
I have a few honorable mentions.
Please.
I really love Guy Ritchie action. I couldn't choose a specific scene, but I loved the way he films things. Yeah. Sherlock, Man from U.N.C.L.E., King Arthur.
The thing that comes to mind for me is that first Sherlock movie made the scene in the barn.
Splitting?
I think it's just kind of like an iconic.
And then I really wanted to. I loved the Thor Ragnarok scene on the bridge, but I couldn't pick
with
the
Led
whole
Zeppelin
scene.
movie,
I just really loved the way
yeah.
the lightning was in there, even though it was very CGI.
That was one of those aspects where the CGI didn't bother me as much because it wasn't the people weren't CGI. I don't mind when they use it to impact the scene. I just hate when it is the scene.
Right. Yeah. One honorable mention I had to put on there was I don't know if you remember the movie Children of Men. It was with Clive Owen.
Oh, God. I can never watch that movie again. I aged 20 years. It was my whole emotions were used up.
It's so intense, but there's a couple, it was famous for having, I think there's one scene that's like almost 10 minutes of just a single take, and it's just all this, it's like really intense.
That movie's so sad.
But it, I don't know, there are action scenes, but it just wasn't like my favorite. But it's just I have to pay respect to there's some really, really long single take scenes, and it's just a lot of stuff happening. And there's one great scene where like a guy dies, and the movie blood splashes, and actually splashed on the camera lens, and it wasn't supposed to happen, but because it's this whole set piece of like 10 minutes, they couldn't just stop, right? It's like in the middle of it, and to reset it would be so much money and work, so they just kept going with it, and the rest of the scene is like with this blood on the lens, and it just works out beautifully, but it's got some great scenes in there. Yeah. Thank you for listening. I don't know what our next podcast is going to be quite yet. I think we're going to do something besides movies, since our last 2 podcasts have been about movies. But thanks for listening to the Modern Life Podcast, and we'll catch you soon.